Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Adelaide Crowcast for another Tuesday night live edition. Joining us tonight is, for a return engagement, is Scorpus, Nikki Nui, our regular panelists, as well as Phoenix. How are you tonight, folks?
Pretty good.
Yeah, doing all right myself.
We're all good.
Very good. Later in the show, we've got the interview with David Mackay. Be sure to stick around for that and have a listen. And but in the meantime, I'll throw it open to the panel to raise whatever the most pressing issue you see in football at the moment.
I think what Rob and I just talked about before we came on air was the Four Corners episode that went out last night regarding Hal Hunter and a bit of what went on at Essendon. For those of us who have followed the saga from start to finish and read everything in between, nothing new was kind of really said. It was just the way it was presented. It actually made it a lot clearer. And for people who haven't been following on, it kind of let them know about some of the worst aspects that did go on. And very interestingly, what was discovered at the very end was, for those of you who aren't aware, Hal Hunter, who was a rookie list player with Essendon, did not sign a consent form, but he did receive injections. He didn't receive a show cause notice because he didn't sign the consent form. He and his parents have taken Essendon and the AFL to court to try and find just exactly what he was injected with and try and get any details. And Essendon sort of kind of won the court case because they said they have absolutely no records to show to him, therefore he really shouldn't be chasing them because they've got nothing. And he was told to pay costs, which the judge actually made the minimum amount for that. And since this came out, all of a sudden Essendon did find some more paperwork and sent that to him, and they tried to mediate with him and his parents prior to Four Corners going to air, basically, I think, to try and stop it occurring. But they're now no longer chasing him for costs. So for people who are a club that's saying that, yes, we're interested in looking after the players, everything else, it was just basically proving what we know, that they're not. They're only interested in the good PR.
Yeah, look, I was actually a bit appalled by it's nothing we haven't all heard before, or if you've been following the case, there wasn't anything really new, although some of the information regarding the not for human use elements of the drugs that were administered were a bit shocking. But it's Essendon's attitude towards the young lad that I found astonishing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's no longer on the list. He's not one who's going to play for them ever again, or he's not one who's going to be in the AFL system. So they basically really couldn't care.
It was just
really...
Sorry, go on, Scorpus.
Yeah, it's just a really terrible situation all around with how the entire thing has been handled from top to bottom. It's just awful.
And I think what's really damning of the AFLPA, which if you guys have heard me talk about Paul Marsh, etc. before, I have absolutely no respect for the AFLPA, because here is somebody who really does need their assistance. He's no longer in the game, but they say that they're going to help those type of players. There's been nothing said from the AFLPA, and they've provided no assistance to him.
No, and again, the AFLPA have shown themselves to be a political animal. They haven't come down at all in favour of the players in terms of the players' welfare. They've been far more concerned about positioning the players in terms of their immediate playing future, and trying to, heap all the blame on the AFL and on Essendon in particular. But really, player welfare should be number one in their charter, and at the end of the day, I haven't heard any noise from them whatsoever about measures to bring Essendon to account or to assist the players going forward in their medical situations. I mean, we hear the Cronulla lad that ended up coming out of cancer remission and dying as a direct result of Stephen Dank providing indiscriminate growth hormones to that particular player, and you think, what must some of these lads be thinking?
Yeah, I think there might be some stuff going on behind the scenes. So, towards the end of the year, when these players are going to come back, it's going to be interesting to see how many of them will actually remain at Essendon and how many of them will be up for grabs for other clubs.
I can certainly see a pretty significant chunk of the players wanting to leave. I'm not sure about any of their real guns like Dyson Heppel or Hurley, but certainly some of their other players I can't imagine would really want to stay around after that.
Has anyone seen Heppel on Fox this week? I don't have Fox at the moment, so has anyone seen Heppel on Fox at all?
I either turn it off or I fast forward if I've recorded it.
I take a running dive whenever I see or hear of anything the Essendon saga come up, so no, I haven't seen it.
There's been some reports on what was said that he's kind of upset at the club. And he's also said that he knows exactly what he was given. That's very nice, Dyson. Can you go tell how? Because he's got no idea. I don't think Dyson's actually the brightest spark in the world anyhow. So he's never really come across that way. And I think a few things that have come out have kind of proved that that's probably about right.
Just so much contradiction when the club themselves, one of their planks of their defence is that they can't really say what's been given. Couldn't provide that information at any stage, and yet, Dyson reckons he knows. Well, good luck, mate.
One of the things I thought was really interesting this week is that I listened to, I think it was the AFL Media's AFL podcast or something, and they were talking about how, amongst themselves as a team, writing for AFL.com.au, they were, they actually had meetings to decide how they were going to portray the Essendon saga. And because, of course, now that they're actually convicted drug cheats, they had to think, well, we could present it that way, which I think a lot of people in the footy industry would like to see portrayed. But instead they went with the whole victim mentality that I think myself, I'm really sick of hearing about that. And I think a lot of other people are as well.
Yeah, I think that's the general gist of it. And you've had a bit from Talkback because Mom Freeze is going to be on Triple M here in Adelaide. And it's like, well, no, they shouldn't be doing any of this. They shouldn't be front and centre on our screens going, oh, isn't he a good bloke? Well, he might be a good bloke, but he's also a drug cheat. So, sorry.
Well, guys, the really good and positive thing about football is that it is back, and round one is with us next week, and very exciting that
this week.
This week it's back with us, and round one is commencing, and I think that's probably will be a great tonic, and hopefully we can leave some of the Essendon stuff behind for a while. How are we looking for round one, folks? In terms of our own game, we're playing North Melbourne on Saturday night. Perhaps it might be time to have a bit of a look and see how we are going to shape up. I think it'll be a terrific game, and I think there might be a little bit of a contradiction in game styles. I think North will go with their traditional contested game, and we'll be a little bit more on the outside. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, certainly, and I hope that we'll hear a bit more about that later in the preview podcast. But yeah, I'm really hoping that we can come out firing in the first round like we always do, or at least we have done last year against North Melbourne, and really take it to them and keep their losing streak going.
We quite like that losing streak, don't we?
Well, they're one of the better teams for us to be playing in round one. We don't seem to have any fear of them. So, hopefully we can start off. But as Scorpus said, we'll be listening with bated breath, mate, on Thursday night as you give us your detailed analysis. And who have we got on Thursday night? Mr. Mystery Guest and...
I think you're on.
Am I?
I hope so.
Oh, shit.
Well done, Phoenix.
Apparently I'm on.
Yeah, please put that one in the calendar, and
right.
We'll get on Thursday night at 7:30 Adelaide time and have a chat.
Yeah,
I guess one thing we could do is just have a quick guess at how we might line up and what changes there might be. Do we think that there's going to be any surprise selections?
I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see which way Pike and the selection committee go. I think there's going to be some players who will miss out that you could make a very valid case that we could be playing them.
Yeah, we've got really good competition for spots at the moment. There's a lot of players who are putting their hand up, and our injury list is very short. So, personally, for me, I think we might see McGovern this week, and that would be probably a little bit of a surprise for some people, even though he did play quite well throughout the NAB Challenge. I think he's definitely maybe a smoky for round one, and has proven himself. So, hopefully, he gets a shot.
Yeah, I think they might bring Brad Couch and Atkins back. Can't see Cameron and Knight getting a run, although they are back and fully fit. I think that they'll probably get a bit of a spell in the twos just to get some match fitness. But I think that we'll see hopefully Brad Crouch back and Rory Atkins after those club imposed suspensions.
Interestingly, Pike was on the afternoon rush hour with Louis and Jars, and they did ask him about did he want to name any of like the younger players he think were going, like the second, third and fourth year players who were going to take that step up. He said he didn't want to, he doesn't like to focus on individuals, as people know, but what he's actually done within the club is he hasn't looked at those younger kind of players. Who he's challenged, he said, is the players within the 50 to 100 game mark for them to get some consistency and for them to also be assisting those younger ones around them. And it's very interesting because I've got the little list up in front of us of games played as to who is within that sort of thing. So you've got Curtly Hampton, Kyle Cheney, Rory Laird, Tom Lynch, Josh Jenkins, Luke Brown, Andy Otten, Ricky Henderson, Brodie Smith, and Daniel Talia. And interestingly, Tex has only played 107 games, so you could almost consider him within that bracket. There's some nice little players in there that it appears that Pike has actually come out and challenged from within the club.
Well, there's no doubt that depth this year is far and away the best we've had for quite some time. And he'd be pumping up those lads to take the next step. I think the impression I get is that the competition across the board is like for spots is pretty keen. So that's what you want at the beginning of the season, along with our injury list or lack thereof.
Mostly lack thereof.
What other games do you see as being appealing on the weekend? I think
Thursday night.
No, not Thursday night. Definitely the Collingwood Sydney game and the Western Bulldogs Freo game. They both look like they'll be quite interesting affairs, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Scorpus, are you a bit bullish about Collingwood like I am?
Yes, I think they've really had some great inclusions over the off-season with Howe, Treloar, and the name that we wanted, Aish. I think they're going to go quite well this year, and especially being able to drop, Jesse White and bring in someone like Darcy Moore into their forward line, shores it up a bit more, and I think they might sneak into the 8 or thereabouts this year, so it's all looking good for them.
Can anybody think of a backman who will be able to actually handle Dane Swan when he plays up forward?
Oh, it's a tough one.
I think he's going to be a nightmare. And by the look of it, the way they were playing through in the NAD Challenge, he's going to play quite a number of minutes up forward.
Yeah, I think they've introduced some flexibility into their team this year. I really like the look of Collingwood. I think, from my perspective, they look like the ones to challenge from outside the 8 this year. No doubt about it. Just the way they're travelling at the moment, I think they'll knock Sydney over on the weekend.
I think the one concern
I agree with Phoenix.
I think the one concern for them would have to be their back line. It kind of doesn't stack up as well as players that they've got in the midfield and forward line, and I think that they could be vulnerable to a stronger forward line like ours, West Coast, Hawthorns, those sort of teams.
Danos thinks that Luke Brown will be able to curtail Dane Swan. That'll be a hell of a challenge.
The other game of interest, I think, is the Western Bulldogs and Freo. Freo travelling over to the Telstra Dome, or Etihad Stadium, I should say, where Western Bulldogs are so strong and so hard to beat. And Freo just didn't look great in the pre-season. I'm just wondering whether the pace of the Doggies and being at Etihad might catch them in round one.
Yeah, I reckon the Bullies will knock them off. To be honest with you, I don't think Freo are quite there yet, and I think the Bullies will be riding on the back of last year, and they'll hit the ground running at the beginning of the season at the very least. They've got a couple of really good ins. Liberatore's obviously coming back. Is really going to help them in the midfield. I think they're looking good again this year.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me.
I'm not so sure about the Bullies because this cap rotation and how that's actually really going to affect them. That's what I'm still kind of looking out for, because they really do like that run and gun, but I think that they have to change their game style. They've got to have more than just that.
I think their ability to score is going to be the key for them this year. And I don't know. I mean, the whole cap rotation thing probably deserves its own little discussion.
And
in a sec.
One of the games that I probably should have mentioned as well, Hawthorn and Geelong. Geelong just seem to me to be incredibly overvalued by the media at the moment, or overrated, and I think that spread to the bookies who have overrated them a bit. I think Hawthorn, are paying around about $1.65 or 70 or something. I know that Brad Hill was injured, or an announcement was made today that he's out for 6 weeks with a cracked wrist, but still think Hawthorn should get over Geelong there. They just seem to be a bit overvalued at the moment.
There's such hype around Geelong and their recruiting and yada, yada, yada. I really hope that they crash and burn. I don't...
You're not the only one.
It's not just the Dangerfield factor. I just feel like they're incredibly overrated this year. They're carrying a couple of niggles. Menzel's struggling to get on the park, and a couple of others as well. Vardy's only played a little bit in the pre-season. I think he's key for them. I don't know. I still see them as middle of the road this year.
I think the hype will get to them.
Their backline. Their backline's a big concern.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're vulnerable down back, and I think they're going to really miss Stevie J.
And he looked good for GWS.
Oh, he was having fun out there.
They've done very well at building the hype train again at the Cattery. But by the same token, I don't know. I just don't see them having the cattle this year. I think they're vulnerable to injury, and I think they're a couple of decent players short. And you'll see Selwood and Dangerfield carry them a lot this year. But I don't think the others will flash in and out. But I don't think there's much else there.
Now we can actually talk a little bit about us, because we had the season launch on Friday where we actually combined for the what is it, the one that you pay the money to go and see normally, but with also the family day. And I thought it went off pretty well. It was quite interesting actually having it at Adelaide Oval and everybody being presented, and then you could go on and actually have a kick on the ground is quite nice. But I think what created a bit of discussion on the board was the new commercial that came out.
Yeah, the new commercial is great. I thought I really liked it when I first saw it. It's a bit of a different commercial to the sort of ones that show game day footage and things like that. It's definitely very stylized, but I think it really shows us what the Crows mean.
Yeah, it's slick and professional, and I like the theme.
And Fagan had actually challenged them. He said, you have to encapsulate what We Fly as One means. And I think it did it.
Sorry, folks, I just dropped out for a while there, but I'm back. I gather we've moved on to the Crows commercial.
Yes, we have.
Thanks for joining us, Pete.
I don't know what happened. I had a gremlin.
National Tiles has just said it's powerful imagery, and it really was. It's using the crow and using us all combined together, and I thought it was really great imagery of from the country to the suburbs to the city. We all fly as one. It's very, very clever.
Anything else from the pre-season before we move forward? I would like to say that I think the boards themselves have been very disappointing this pre-season. We've had one or two active threads. We're missing some personalities. I don't know. I'm disappointed.
I think we've just all been hanging out for actual real football to start.
Yeah, I think that everyone's just about had enough, and you can see that there's been just a few threads there where it's been pretty bitey. So I think everyone's a bit edgy, everyone's a bit toey, everyone wants just the games to start.
All right, so if the games are going to start, who do we think that's on our list that hasn't played a game for us is going to get a game this season?
Ooh.
Stumped you, have I?
What was the question again?
So who from our squad who hasn't played a game for us is going to get a game for us this season?
Well, Miller would have to be top of the list. I can't see him being displashed from the side now.
I think that'll happen this weekend. And
I agree with Scorpus. I think that Mitch McGovern will play Charlie Cameron's role. I think he's been green for that role in the three NAB Challenge games with the way that he's chased and harassed and tackled and been really good in that regard. And then as you said, Nicky put some offence into his game in the game against the Gold Coast and looked like he's ready to step up and take that challenge of replacing Charlie until he comes back.
I think we'll see.
And I think you can also add in Seedsman.
Yeah, Seedsman definitely. I think we'll see a bit of Dean Gore, and I think we'll see a bit of Kirtley Hampton through the year, and hopefully a bit of Troy Menzel, Daniel Menzel, Troy Menzel.
Yeah, it's Troy.
Yeah, we've got Troy.
Troy, that's right.
Daniel's the other one. We can have him too, because didn't McDermott name him playing for us?
So you've just put me in the same... You're out. I'm going to disconnect you. That's disgraceful.
I think we'll see Troy Menzel this year. I think we'll see him a lot sooner than Kirtley Hampton, who's currently injured and out for 6 to 8 weeks. I think Menzel just a few weeks in the SANFL and he'll be right in there. As far as the other players go, we've got guys like John O'Beach, Harry Deer, Tom Duday, Greenwood, Hunter, Keith, O'Brien, Ramsey and Wigg, who haven't played games for us other than those that we've mentioned. And yeah, I can't really see that group of players really, maybe with the exception of Harry Wigg, getting a game this season for us. Do you guys agree?
It'll have to be injuries through the midfield. I think that's where that's going to have to come in. I think he's been groomed for next year.
With Wigg, yeah, I would agree.
I think I went hard in the predictions thread and put John O'Beach for 6 games and a nomination for Mark of the Year. So
wow.
I'm kind of caught there. I went a bit hard on Jono and a bit bullish. So I think realistically he probably won't play, but I'm going to hold on to a bit of hope as an old Westies boy that he'll get a run at some point.
Yeah, and Bacon8. Sorry, Bacon8 in the chat just said, should we promote Riley O'Brien as a mid-year promotion to play against Essendon? And yeah, that's certainly an idea.
I think he will definitely be promoted at some stage onto the full list. It's just kind of what's going to happen regarding that. But he's quite a nice little handy backup we've got coming along as well.
I think just the fact that we've named 6 to 8 players straight off the bat is reflective of what we were talking about earlier with depth. I don't know whether we necessarily could have dropped 8 names just like that in years gone past, so that's all bodes well, I think.
Certainly very promising.
And Ryan B just asked what's going on with Dode. Is he too small? He's definitely too small. Whoa, that was a bit loud. They've been managing his load because he's come from playing a bit more basketball than just solid football. So they're just getting his body used to it. Didn't want to push him too much. I think he was close to the SANFL, playing in the SANFL trial game, but he was just that little bit sore. So I think they're doing the right thing in erring on the side of caution, I think, in that respect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we'll leave it there. And as we promised at the start of the show, we've been able to. We've been very fortunate that we've had David Mackay be supplied by the club to come on and interview. So I think without further ado, Phoenix, I think are we ready for that interview?
We could be ready.
It was even though we're live, we did pre-record this a little while ago when David was available. So hopefully he's there now, and we'll throw to that interview. We've got a very, very special guest this evening on the show for an interview. David Mackay, the number 14 for the Adelaide Crows, has been kind enough to join us tonight. How are you tonight, David?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Great to have you aboard. We thought we'd have a bit of a general chat tonight, just not about footy stuff, but just a bit of your background and history as well. And we did a bit of research and found out that back in the old days, you managed to play a bit of basketball with Andy Otten. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Andy and how that then fed into the time that you have had at the Adelaide Football Club?
Yeah, well, I started playing basketball when I was about 5 or 6, and actually my first team I was ever in, I was actually in the same team as Andy down at the Nunawading Vikings in eastern Melbourne, and yeah, we sort of played for a number of years together. I was actually coached by Andy's dad, Theo, for a number of years, and played with Andy and Andy's brother, Johnny, as well in the same team. And, yeah, I suppose we did that. And then we actually found ourselves, I sort of stopped playing basketball for quite a while and started to play footy, and Andy did the same thing. And we actually found our way into the same under-18 team of the Oakley Chargers, and managed to win a premiership there playing footy together. So, we played in the premiership for basketball when we were about 8 years old, and then we managed to play in the footy grand final together when we were 18, and then lo and behold, we end up at the same AFL club. It's been terrific to have that relationship with Andy for most of our lives now, and obviously the families too are pretty close, and it's really good the way it's all worked out.
Would have been
That's a great
if you
story.
didn't actually like each other, mate.
yeah. No, look, we get on really well, and we're still close mates, so it's been really good.
Did that help you with your transition from moving from Victoria to South Australia to have that existing relationship?
Yeah, well, I got there to the Adelaide Crows a year before Andy, so it was really good actually to have someone, I suppose, come over who I had such a great relationship with, and I certainly think it helped him too, coming over and having someone that he knew, and it is pretty daunting coming over as an 18-year-old, moving state. You don't know anyone, you don't have any family or friends over here, so I suppose for him to have a familiar face was good, and for me to try and take him under my wing and help him wherever I could, and so it sort of worked out really well, and he obviously he's settled now over here, and we both are, and it's we remain really close.
I wondered, have you actually nicknamed him a copycat then? Because from what you were just saying there, it seems he's always copied you.
No, look, I actually left that club that we played junior basketball with. I actually left that club when I was about 11 or 12, and he was pretty dirty on me for that. So I don't think he's actually still forgiven me for moving clubs when I was that age, and still holds that against me, and still says we would have done all right if we had stuck together a bit longer, but we found our way back together eventually.
And the other interesting thing we found is somebody was searching on your lovely little Wikipedia page, and it actually said on there you were captain of your house at school, and Todd Goldstein was your vice captain. Is that correct?
Yeah. So Todd and I went to school together, and we're pretty close mates at school, and he obviously has a really strong basketball background, and it was actually a pretty interesting story. He was actually about to, or thinking about going over to America to play college basketball, sort of when we were in our final years at school, and I sort of had a bit of a word to him and tried to get him down to play footy, because I knew he could play footy, and he'd played here and there, and he'd done pretty well. So we tried to coax him into playing school footy, and we got him to do that for a year 12 year. So he came down, played that, and then I tried to convince him to play TAC Cup, and we got him into to play the last 4 games of the under-18s with Oakley Chargers, and he came in and absolutely dominated. Obviously played in the finals, played in the grand final, dominated, and got drafted. So it sort of worked out pretty well. He didn't play a lot of footy at all, but he had that sort of natural ability, and he had the size, and he was a great ruckman all the way through school. So it was quite timely that he decided to change over when he did, and it's worked out really well for him, obviously.
So I think it sounds like he owes you a present now too. You're doing quite well here.
No, I'm taking too much credit for that. I just every time I catch up with him, I remind him that if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't be playing footy. But I'm sure he would have found his way into it at some stage anyway.
Do you give him a bit of a clip when things like Petrenko kicking one off the ground to win in the last 30 seconds and happens and that sort of stuff? Just remind him, where he fits in the scheme of things?
Yeah, look, that was they were going through a pretty tough period at that point. They'd lost about 3 or 4 games in a row by less than a kick, and look, he's had some great success. So I can't really be talking too much about that sort of stuff because he probably has the wood over me. But every time we get a chance to play and hopefully beat them, it's a good feeling. I have a few words to him after the game, and but it's all good fun.
Hopefully again this weekend, mate. Hey, when you were first drafted, you then got mini drafted to the Panthers. Just give us a bit of an insight. The difference between back then when it was split, between the 2 clubs and now to the whole streamlined arrangement. How are you finding it, and how does it feel around the club now that that's in place?
Oh, look, it's a drastic change. It's for our footy club, and for the AFL clubs who have outright reserves teams or state league teams in their own right. It's such an advantage. It's quite hard to actually understand how much it does help us. I suppose when we had the old system where we'd go out to SANFL clubs, you really were part of another footy club. You really were playing for another footy club every weekend, and it basically meant the role that you played had no correlation to the role that you were playing in the AFL squad. Training. You go to your SANFL club late in the week on a Thursday or Friday and train with them. So effectively, you're only having about half the week at your AFL club. So in terms of development, it's working so much better being able to have our own team where we can stay together. You can play the same role, the same structures that the AFL team is, so that when you come in and get picked, it's a lot more streamlined, and you can come straight in. You understand what you need to do, and not have to make that adjustment. So it's been great for us to have that the last couple of years, and I think it's only going to help us, more going forward with our development and our pressure for spots and all that sort of stuff, which is basically key to having a good side and a good footy club.
David, just going back a few years, I know that we've had obviously a number of coaches, particularly in your tenure at the Adelaide Football Club. I'm just wondering how that number of changes affects you as a player, and I guess any other player in the playing group when you've got a number of different coaches with different styles, and how that can affect you generally.
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that when a new coach comes in, a lot of changes happen, and you have to make a lot of adjustments, and it does take time to, I guess, learn the ways of the new coach and how they want to play, and I suppose how they want to set the club up as well. And so I guess to have that change so much in the last few years, you know, it hasn't been easy, and it's not just you know, the players have to adjust, but it's the whole club. It's support staff, medical staff. Like when a senior coach changes, all that gets reviewed and changes, and so it is quite challenging, and things do need to change, and you have to adapt to it. But I guess the coaches that we've had, you know, have really been really positive with that, and they've come in and they've made great change. And for, you know, obviously things haven't worked out for certain reasons for some of those coaches, but you know, I think that the group has accepted what's happened, and you know, with Pikey coming in this year, he's been able to bring a great positive mindset to this group. And I think you know, we've had a lot of challenges in the past, but Pikey has come in with his way and what he believes will help us win. And obviously we've had things that have been in place in the past that we've kept because they've, you know, we have seen them work over the last few years. So it's not a matter of wiping the floor and changing everything. It's just making a few adjustments and to keep us, I guess, ahead of the curve and keep trying to improve quicker than you know, the 17 other clubs out there.
So you would have been one of the few remaining from when Pikey was here previously. Were you around then?
No, Pikey left the year before I got there. So we've got a few. I think you know, Tomo, VB, Rishi Douglas are the ones who are still around from that year.
Yeah.
From that, I'd be interested to know, have they actually said anything about whether he's changed a little bit from that time?
I'm not too sure. I suppose that's what, 10 years ago now. So you know, he's obviously been through a lot in that 10 years. He's you know, he's had you know, obviously areas of his life business that he's delved into, and then you know, he's been on the board at West Coast. He's coached a little bit with Freo on West Coast. So he's done a lot in that time. So I think he has added a lot to his footy knowledge and his people management skills. But I haven't had that conversation with those boys about whether they think he's changed too much. And I know, you know, just talking briefly, VB. You know, said he's always been really switched on. He understands the game really well and communicates really well. So that's something that he's had the whole time through. Now, it's interesting. One of our forum members has read Paddy Steinford's Breakfast with Bales books. It's on my to-read list. I unfortunately haven't got to it yet. But they said that in the book it was just you were actually discussed about Bales, who had, I'm not sure whether he'd done some work directly with you or not, but it was how you work really well having a very structured role within the team. So I was just actually wondering, was that something you worked directly with Dean Bailey or maybe possibly with Paddy Steinford as well? Or was it something that you think that they directed at the line coaches as the best way to get the best out of you? Yeah, look, I spent quite a bit of time with Bales, and it was probably something that that I'd highlighted with him and the rest of the coaching staff about, I suppose, trying to improve and get better. And I suppose, you know, I'd very much been a structured person, and the way that I played was very structured and specific to the role that I was playing. And I suppose Bales was very big, not just for me, but for all the guys that he worked with closely, was for, I suppose, branching out a little bit more and trying to be a little bit more creative and not so much get out of that structured way, but just branch out a bit and sort of look at things a little bit differently. And he was a little bit different, Bales, and so he, I suppose, gave us a few different strategies and things that we could do in our everyday life that would help us, I guess, be a little bit more creative with our footy and explore opportunities. And that was something that we worked really closely. No, it wasn't just myself; it was a number of other boys who were in the same situation. And so I suppose that was one of the things that Bales had a huge impact on me and many of the boys at the club.
No, it's just a tragedy we didn't have him around very long with us, but it's good to see that he actually did have quite an impact in the time that he was with us.
Oh, look, no doubt. It's hard to fathom, what happened, and it's difficult because there's so many guys at the club who had great relationships with Bales, and he was only at our club for a short time, but he had a profound impact in that time. There's no doubt about that.
Now, David, just on a bit of a lighter note, you were part of the Peroxide Brigade back in the early part of your career, Scotty Welsh and a few others, and I'm sure you would have tried to get Mackay and Rue involved in that at some stage. How has it left you feeling now that the club has changed direction and gone from more of a Ranger approach? And
what, Church?
And post-footy, do you think you might get involved in something similar to Mackay with the Indigenous and try to recruit a few more young peroxided players into the club and get the balance right again?
Look, I'm not too proud of those peroxide days, but it seems to have gone out of fashion, so I think that's why it sort of drifted off the radar. But you're right, we do have our fair share of redheads, and I think we'd probably be leading the way. I reckon in the AFL, we seem to keep bringing one or two in every year. So, I think they can all play and they're great guys. So it doesn't worry me too much. And I think it'll be a while till we see the peroxide back in fashion. I think that might take a while to get back into vogue.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that they're all decent players. I mean, Chief would probably let you know that pretty regularly, wouldn't he? That he's going all right?
Yeah, look, he's the leader of that that clan. So he does cop the most stick about it, and but he does give it as well. So he's got to expect to cop it every now and again. But you got someone like a Dean Gore who's just come into the club, and I certainly feel for him because he's copped it a little bit, but he doesn't deserve it.
Do you reckon he might just shave it off? Try and distance himself from them a bit?
Do a Sauce?
Perhaps. I mean, that's what Sauce has been trying to do, but unfortunately, you can't seem to hide it too well. So,
just on that, David,
doesn't seem to work.
Who would be the king of the sledges out on the track? Can we ask?
Look, I think Tex seems to talk the most, and I'm not down there too often in the forward line, but from what I can gather, he's pretty brutal, and I'm not sure how intellectual it is, but it's pretty brutal, I think.
This is going to air unedited too, mate. So we're gonna tag him in on Twitter.
Yeah.
Can I just ask sorry, just to go back to footy for a second. Can I just ask a footy question? I'm just interested with the way that we're now playing and the way that we played the NAB Challenge. I noticed from the stats that we lost against Fremantle. We lost contested football and clearances, and then against Gold Coast we lost those stats as well as centre clearances. But looking at the NAB Challenge total statistics, we won. I think we were the number one team for uncontested possession. Does that signal a little bit of a change in the way that we've traditionally played over the last few years, being contested ball hunters, to now looking to really try and perhaps stay off the contest a little bit and try and win the ball on outside a little bit more?
Oh, look, there's no doubt that's been a huge area of focus for us because it's been an area that let us down the last probably 2 or 3 years, really. We haven't got that right. So that's been a massive area of focus. But having said that, what we've done on the inside against Freo and also Gold Coast wasn't at the level that we're after. So it's not about sacrificing one for the other. It's about, you've got to be able to win the hunt on the inside. It's the most important thing in our game. And that's will be our number one focus all the time, as it should be. But just having a bit more balance and being able to win our fair share on the outside as well is really important too. So we're trying to get that balance right. We have a few things that we've need to improve on from the last 2 NAB Cup games, and most of it is sort of our inside stuff. But we've done a lot of work on that the last couple of weeks. So I think we'll be ready to go this weekend. But it's about getting the balance right with that. So hopefully you can sort of see us doing both of those.
And just on the fun little thing that probably gets asked quite a bit, just regarding that it was reported a few years ago that the Demons offered you quite an attractive contract. So as being an interstate player, you often get asked, do you like Adelaide and are you going to stay, et cetera, et cetera. But when something like comes along, how much pressure do Victorian clubs put on Victorian players to go back? And in that particular situation, was it a difficult decision for you to stay in Adelaide? Did you contemplate moving back to Melbourne?
Not ever seriously. Obviously, as your sort of career gets on and you get a bit older and your life changes a bit, whether it be your family, your own family, that sort of thing. I guess you get to a point where you have to start, seriously thinking about what the future looks like. And so I suppose you get in a situation where you've got to weigh all that up. And in terms of putting pressure on, I mean, the clubs, both ways are very good. They allow you the time to come to that decision, and you just sort that out through your manager over time. And I never seriously considered leaving the club. I just got to a point where I had to think about the future and where things were headed, and then make a considered decision. And I feel really lucky to be able to play for the Adelaide Footy Club, and I've always felt that way. It's been, it's an absolute privilege to be able to be in that position, and that's the way I've sort of looked at it. And I've just, whenever contracts have come up or whatever, it's just been about making a considered decision, and that's happened all the way through. So, but clubs don't put a lot, too much pressure on you. It's really handled well through the managers and allowing you to just focus on the game.
Hey, now,
so the upshot of...
Oh, sorry, go on.
Just quickly, yeah. So is the upshot of that you feel very strongly about trying to be a one-club player?
That's something that's really important to me. And, it's a lot of guys feel that same way, and but it does get to a point where, as much as you want to be able to do that, other things, if it's preventing you from getting opportunity or from playing, then you have to weigh that up and make a decision based on that. But for me personally, that's something that when my footy's done, I'll look back and be pretty proud on. And that certainly came into my thoughts whenever contracts came up. That was one of the things I was really held pretty tight to me, was to be able to play for a great club for the whole time I played footy.
David, we're just about getting towards the end of the time. We thought we'd leave the most important question to last. There's the new sleep facility down there at Adelaide. If you had to nominate a player you would least like to be caught in that sleep room with you, who would that be?
Oh, I don't know if we've got long enough to name them all. I think it's... Well, I'm not too sure.
Who's the worst snorer?
When we travel these days, we get our own room, so you don't you don't pick up on who snores and all that anymore. But I would probably say Tommy Lynch would be the one that I wouldn't want to be caught in there with for a number of reasons. But not just that he has red hair. So.
You're not going to share that. Just leave it as a mystery for us.
We could be here all night. Probably because when I'd be trying to get to sleep and he'd be still chatting away because you can't shut him up. So that would be probably the main reason.
Yeah. Hey, Dave.
I reckon I can shut him up.
Let's not
no,
go there.
Talking wise. Talking wise, you two.
Oh, jeez. Hey, David, you mentioned one club players before, and I have to ask this. Obviously, I've got the hard-hitting questions here. The reverse Falcon last year, I need to know how big was the fine, and who actually got charged by the leadership group? Was it your fault in the end, or was it Danger's fault?
Voldemort. His name's Voldemort, remember?
Well, I don't think there was any fines handed out, but it certainly wasn't my fault. I can tell you that right now. I think Danger actually was pretty adamant that he wanted to get 2 possessions out of it, so he basically tried to use me as as a bit of a fake smother, and then he was able to get 2 possessions out of it. So it doesn't really surprise me. But no, I don't think I got anything. I think I just got the embarrassment, and that was about it. So no, it didn't look good.
We think it counts as...
Sorry, Nick, go on.
Oh no, we think it counts as an effective possession, which is sometimes a little rare for him. Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me actually. I don't know what I was doing running that close to him. He does spray it a little bit, so.
Well, he wasn't going to give, he wasn't going to give the handball, don't you? yeah. No,
David,
I've seen it far too many times.
David, thanks so much for your time. I hope that wasn't too horrific for you to come on to the Crowcast, but we really, really appreciate your time.
No worries, guys. No worries.
And we're back, and that was our interview.
Is that goes back live, Phoenix?
Yep, that's our interview with D-Mac. Throw it back to you, Pete.
Yeah, I hope the listeners enjoyed that. I thought it was some good, insightful stuff there. And Phoenix, I really enjoyed your question at the end there on the reverse Falcon. I thought that was a good bit of fun.
I just couldn't let him get away with it, mate. I mean, you don't see that very often, do you? And I'm very shocked that he didn't get a fine. I don't reckon we've actually dug a lot deeper. We might have to get 4 corners onto that one.
Or maybe get Lynchy on.
Or
good stuff. All right. Well, that just I think that just takes us to our hour, doesn't it, Phoenix?
Yeah, we're not really time limited, but anymore. We've upgraded our pro broadcaster status on Spreaker, but we'd probably leave on a high note, I would have thought.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, thanks to Scorpus and Nikki and Phoenix for joining us tonight, and as always, thanks very much, Phoenix, for all of your technical support. We couldn't do it without you. I encourage everybody to get on board with the preview show on Thursday with Scorpus. That'll be interesting. We'll have all of the selection news, and look forward to hearing all of that. So thanks very much, everybody. Any last minute goodbyes?
Don't forget to, Pete, Sunday night, even though it won't officially be the end of the round, Sunday night at 7 o'clock, me, Nikki, and I think we got Hank on this weekend. We'll be doing a wrap-up of the round, and I promise you it won't be sedate, particularly if we lose.
Yeah, one last thing.
I'll try and keep him behaving.
Yeah, and one last thing, just the best ways to follow us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at BF Crowcast, and also on Facebook. BF Crowcast is probably the best way to get notifications about, when we're going live, when the shows are, and all the links to previous casts that we do. So check us out on there, and of course on the board as well at bigfooty.com.
Beautiful. Thanks very much, guys. All right. Thanks once again, and thanks again to David Mackay. We really appreciate having him on board. All right. Good night, everybody, and we'll catch you next time around for the Tuesday Night Live edition of the Crowcast.
See you later.
See you guys.
Bye.